oh my gosh, she'll want to sexual assault me in the bathroom.
My preference in men has always been the same since I was 18.
What is it?
I mean, I keep my head down most of the time when I'm walking in the street.
How do you deal with transphobia, all the hate, what we have to go through, and
It's shit.
yeah.
Continuously seeing stories that the media are putting out, which is completely a false representation of the community. I couldn't cope with it anymore.
Hi everyone, and welcome to the first episode with my guest today on Trans Crush podcast. It's such an exciting episode because it's the second episode, but it's the first episode with a guest. And I'm so glad that the guest is my trans sister. We just found out she's a Cancer as well, so she's my Cancer trans sister, Carmen Liu. Carmen Liu is a trans woman and also a founder of Carmen Liu Lingerie. And also in 2020, she was named Forbes 30 Under 30 magazine? Or
Forbes 13 to 30 Europe. The list, yes. So Forbes 13 to 30 list for
That's
Europe.
amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And welcome to the podcast.
Our first one!
Welcome to the podcast. I'm so glad you are here. Just a little background about us. I know of you for, I would say, last 6-7 years when I first moved to London. So I kind of knew about you from the scene, from the club scene, and then we became friends on Instagram. But I actually never had a chance to properly talk to you and get to know you and, hear your story. And I think it's really important because we often go out, especially with us trans girls, we go out and kind of everyone knows everyone.
Always on the club scene, yes.
Right?
Everyone knows everyone.
It's always the club scene, but never what's your story or what you're going through and I really want to look at you from someone who doesn't know you and be more compassionate and be inspired by your life. And that's why I got you on the podcast today as well. First question before we start, and I want to start this podcast with this question for every episode with our future guests is what makes you happy? Because I think this question is so easy, but I feel like not many people get the questions.
To be honest, I think in the last 6 years it would be working for my company because that obviously brings a lot of joy to myself, but also to the community. So that does really make me very happy, which is why on my Instagram it does say workaholic because it genuinely does make me happy. I think that would be my answer. So
you feel the passion, you feel the drive, you feel the purpose, why you're doing what you're doing.
Yes.
That's beautiful. So while we're talking about the brand, can I ask quickly, when did you start a brand? You said 6 years ago, right?
Yeah, so 2018 was when it formed and it launched in 2019, February of 2019. So we're now coming on with 2025 now. So that is, 6 years.
Amazing.
Long time.
Congratulations again.
Thank you.
It's really amazing achievement. Why did you decide to start a lingerie is it just for trans people?
So trans, non-binary, or anyone that tucks, which surprisingly is a lot larger of a community than you would think. It's not just trans women and non-binary people.
Seriously?
There is a lot of cross-dressers.
Okay.
Which has been very interesting. There's also just a lot of men that like to wear it for their wives at home.
Wow.
In the bedroom.
Okay.
We only found this out through customers emailing in and telling us these stories, which of course is great. Whoever wants to buy it, if it makes them happy, please do buy it. But of course, that's not what I initially thought it would be.
Yeah.
So it's a lot wider of a group of people than I kind of thought.
Can you please explain for our listeners what tucking is and why people do that?
Oh gosh. Okay, so tucking is if you are born with a penis and you need to tuck to make everything a smoother profile from the side on. Tucked down right now.
Tuck it up. When in doubt, tuck it out.
So, yes, I mean, a long time ago, the reason why I started the company was because when I was 22, which is when I transitioned, London was a vibe, it was amazing, but there really wasn't many services for the trans and non-binary plus community at all. And specifically garments. So back then, the only product that you could purchase online was something called a gaff, which the only company that I could find back then was in America. And it was very, I don't know, it's very heartbreaking, I would say, when I first transitioned to not have, I Googled online trans underwear. I just automatically assumed it would have existed back then. And just couldn't find anything on Google.
Yeah.
Just nothing. And I was like, surely there must be something.
Yeah.
And then I found this one brand, and they sold a product called a gaff. But it came in 3 colours, nude, black and red, and 3 sizes. I'm quite slim, so their smallest size didn't exactly work. For tucking, it needs to be tight.
Yeah.
And then also anyone that is not a normal body size, you also wouldn't be able to buy anything because they had just 3 very small, like medium sizes, I would say. So that's why for about the first 5 years of my transition, I was tucking the same as everyone else, using body tapes and just whatever I could fashion up at home.
Yeah.
And then thankfully in 2016, I lost everything with a previous business.
Oh, wow.
And I lost all my money and couldn't afford to pay for my rent, nothing. But I thankfully ended up meeting a investor who was interested in investing in the company.
Yeah.
So I spent 2 weeks putting together a business plan, like just hours all through the morning, through the night. And then thankfully he turned around and he agreed to invest in the company. So
That's
in
amazing.
2018 is when I started forming the company.
Wow.
And that's the reason why, because there just was not a lingerie company for tucking
Wow.
back then. So
do you offer like a wider range of sizes and colors, all of that? Different
that's a good
styles?
question. So immediately from when we launched with 7 sizes, which is 4 more
That's amazing.
than the current brand that was doing the gaff underwear. Of course, I was the first company at the time to do lingerie, which tucks. So it looks like what everyone says is normal lingerie, but it tucks at the same time.
Yeah.
So
Which I feel like it's more pleasing for the eye as well.
yeah, it is.
It looks sexy, it looks flattering, but at the same time, you get a tuck, right?
Yeah, you get the tuck and it looks nice because normally, I don't know about you, back in the day, I would wear a gaff or tape and then I would put cis women's underwear over the top to then make it look pretty, which of course doesn't feel very nice in your head because you already feel like, you're some weird science experiment.
Yeah.
So it was the process of I had 7 months to combine both having to wear the underwear but without wearing a gaff and underwear. And back to your original question, I launched in the 7 sizes and I think 13 colours.
That's impressive.
It was something crazy.
13 colors.
It was crazy.
Amazing.
Yeah, it was.
I'm so proud of you, and I really wish you all the best with your company, because being transgender and having a successful brand and inspiring other people, other trans girls to really follow their dreams and work on their projects, what they're passionate about, what they feel their purpose. It's super inspiring. So thank you for inspiring us with your brand.
Thank you.
I have one more question with the tucking.
Okay.
It's not related to your company, but in general, I would love to know your opinion. Why do you think trans women need to tuck?
Society. And also for ourselves.
Yeah.
But I still think that relates to society because they want us to not have a bulge. So that makes us want to also not have it. So as much as we do it because we feel better tucking, I do feel like a lot of us are only tucking because that's what we're most fitted in society if we do that.
Yeah.
I mean, personally, I don't like to tuck all the time. But I think that's only come with age after living as a trans person for a very long time.
Exhausted.
I'm bloody exhausted.
This experience has been so long.
I think, like for example, on the way here today, I wasn't tucked. I was wearing another line of my own underwear, but it's not designed for tucking, but it's
Right.
designed for people that were born with a penis.
Right.
So there's more space.
Just lounging.
But it looks more feminine and it's
Yeah.
lounging.
Right.
But I'm comfortable to do that.
Yeah.
Whereas before it was, I used to sleep in tucking tape.
Seriously?
Yeah, I used to sleep with, it wasn't tucking tape, that didn't exist back then, but it's like a medical tape that I used to buy.
Yeah.
I used to sleep in that because I was
Yeah.
like, I must be tucked to be feminine.
Wow.
So, yeah,
That was the beginning of your transition?
Yes.
Yeah.
So for the first 4 or 5 years, I was using medical tape or a garment that I had fashioned out of an elastic band and a sock. And then, obviously, as soon as I created my first prototype in 2018, I've only worn my products, obviously, since then. And it's the best thing I've ever done, really.
That's so good.
Yes.
Because, with tucking, I didn't do it for like others or like to kind of confirm like I'm a woman. Like it's not that. I feel like for me more it's safety and feeling
Okay.
safe and not feeling attacked, because in my experience I got attacked a lot, especially in the beginning of my transition. It's like on the streets and stuff like that. So I think there's a trauma in me
Yes.
when I'm always thinking, oh my God, I have to be safe. I have to be safe. So I feel like even with my transition, I put such a high pressure on myself to look
Yes.
as possible.
As possible.
Possible means looking like a cisgender woman, so people can't tell, to kind of protect myself.
To protect yourself,
And
I
I
get
feel
it.
like I'm doing the same with tucking. Like even now, I'm feeling pretty much comfortable with myself now, and I feel like I've kind of done my transition now. There's still the element of tucking in public space, on the beach and stuff like that.
Oh,
And
definitely on the beach. Oh my God.
because I feel like if I wouldn't, like I would get the stares, and I'm just like, I want to enjoy the sun. I want to be with my friends. I want to be in the moment. And last thing I want to do is to worry about pervs or anyone
Yes.
who is
Oh,
just
yeah, I
looking
get
at me
that. I
or
get
who is, going to attack me later. So I feel like tucking for me is a form of safety.
Safety.
Yeah, rather than feeling feminine, because for me it was never like you are not feminine if you're not tucked.
I get that. And I do a similar thing with if I don't have makeup on and done my hair and I've had my nails done, I do that because I know I feel safer in the street, because I think people clock you better when you've got nothing on.
Right.
Whereas I feel like if you've got the makeup on, the hair, the nails
Yeah,
done,
100%.
it's less likely. So that does come down to a safety thing. And I think that's a
100%,
similar thing.
100%.
I feel more comfortable in myself and less anxious when I'm going about the tube and things. I do.
It's crazy how feminine things are so gender affirming for us, because I know when, right now I have hair extensions behind the scenes. Now when I don't have hair extensions, my gender dysphoria, my discomfort in myself is crazy. Like for
yes.
me, having long hair is expression of femininity, and it's confirming my femininity and feeling comfortable within myself. Same with nails. I haven't had natural nails for the last 8 years. Like I've been having acrylics past 8 years. And same with like lashes and makeup, and like it's really gender affirming and makes me feel safer in the streets, right?
No, I get it. I do.
You said you transitioned at the age of 22?
I think I was 22 or 23, to be honest. I know that this December just gone was my 10th birthday of being Carmen.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And I'm 33 now, so I was somewhere around 22 or 23.
Yeah.
And I was living in Lewisham at the time.
Right. Just before we go to your like coming out and stuff like that, can you please tell me a little bit more about your childhood? Were you on the feminine spectrum, or was it just like a big shock for
Oh,
everyone?
no, honey, I was definitely on the feminine side.
Yeah. Were you always like dressing up, or tell us a bit more about that?
So you know what? I didn't know I was trans until about within the 6 months before I transitioned.
Same.
Only because I was just so accepted as how I was.
Yeah, same.
So in my childhood, I was a ballet dancer. So obviously ballet at the time was classified as a very gay thing for a guy to do anyway.
Still is, I guess.
It still is, unfortunately, even though the majority of ballet dancers aren't always gay.
Yeah.
That's actually not the
It's
case
just
anymore.
like a stereotype.
It's a stereotype.
We're here
And
to break the stereotypes.
and so yeah, I've always been feminine because when I was younger, I had to do a lot of competition, so I was always wearing makeup and things for my dancing. But my parents and my family just let me do whatever, really. It wasn't... I mean, obviously, I was obvious that I was different. They knew I was different, and, you know, things were pointed out, but it wasn't like I was bullied by my family into not being that way. So I think that's why I never really noticed that I was trans. But one thing I would say is that when I transitioned, I think maybe about a year or 2 years after, and I remember this really well, my mother called me. And I think it was like a random afternoon. And she called me, and then during the conversation, she just said to me, I don't know if this is word for word, so don't quote me, but it was something along the lines of, I've just been to the local doctors, and there was like a leaflet on the board about being trans. Maybe is your child transgender or something. And my mum had said to me, like, you do know that if I knew this back then, I would have, you know, helped you transition, which I thought was really nice.
That's so thoughtful.
I know, I thought that was really sweet. And I knew she would have. Obviously, back then, you know, we're talking in 2014. It wasn't really, well, that's when I transitioned, but when I was a kid, that would have been like 2000. Year 2000. It wasn't really a thing that was spoken about. But obviously I know she would have done that if I was showing signs of it. But back then everyone just assumed you were gay if you were feminine. And not that you could be trans. So yeah, I didn't really have much of a problem as a child. Obviously I did later on once I transitioned, so that's a bit different.
Why do you think people need more like representation? Because you said like 20 years ago there was like no representation, and 10 years ago a little bit more, and now obviously everyone is, you know, hearing about trans issues and restrooms and scandals and you know, all this stuff. So everyone kind of hears of trans people, but still there's not much representation. That's another reason why I started this podcast, by the way, because I was like, enough, let's make it trans mainstream.
It does need to be spoken about.
Openly. But what do you think could be done differently, either in the past or now?
Differently in sense of...
Like society.
So
it's more easy, it's easier for trans kids, trans teens, or trans people in their early 20s and their parents, so they kind of, you know, they have the education, they have the knowledge and stuff like that. Do you think social media really helps with that?
To be honest, my personal opinion is that it's a lot worse now than it was when I transitioned.
Is it?
That's what I feel like. I know some people don't. I think that might be more the younger generation. But in my experience, when I transitioned, like I mentioned, I was living in Lewisham, which at the time was still a bit rough and ready in Lewisham.
Lewisham is South London?
Southeast, I think, technically. I think so, yes. And I remember when I had transitioned, obviously when you transition, you think that being a woman is all about long hair, skimpy clothes, and like the sluttiest platform shoes. So essentially I looked like a cross-dresser drag queen back then. But I walked from my house 10 minutes, 15 minutes to the station, dressed like that during daylight. No one battled? What's the word? Battered an eyelid at me.
I never heard that.
I think battered an eyelid. I think that's the saying. No one did anything. No one said anything. No one looked at me. No one shouted anything at me. Whereas these days, I can go out like this and people say something.
Interesting.
So I feel like if we want to make a change, number one, social media and the media have to stop portraying us as a threat and as being dangerous. In my experience, I mean, I know so many trans people through my business. Here in the United States, my business is very big in the States. I don't know any trans women that have done anything that the newspapers are saying.
I know what you're going to say, yeah.
So I'm like, they need to stop doing that, number one.
Yeah.
And we just need to go back in time a bit in terms of how people just was not bothered by us. And that comes down to the media zipping their mouth shut. And then I feel like we just now need to progress by putting more education out into, I don't know about into the schooling system, but just education about trans people. Yeah. That was one thing that I focused my business on at the beginning, was education as well as my products. But I had to stop that during COVID in the end. And that's one thing I hope I can get back to. And I do think that does help, because once you know, when you go to many parties or things and there's a lot of straight men there, obviously when my friends are like, oh, it's Carmen she's trans, they have a problem with it.
Right.
But then by the end of the night, after we've all been drinking, and I've explained stuff about trans people, and I've actually explained that the stuff that the media is saying is not truthful, then by the end of it, they're like, oh, you know what, trans people are cool, which is a sad thing to have to do.
I know.
It is. It's a very sad thing to have to do that.
I remember, like, 10 years ago, someone was like, this is my friend, I don't know the name. He's gay, but he's nice. It's like the same thing.
Why do you have to say that?
Guess what? We are people.
Yeah.
You know, just because our story doesn't, well, it makes us stronger, I would say. Like, it does change who we are, but it doesn't change who we are as people and humans, you know? If not, we are even more compassionate and kinder.
I always say that.
Most people. Like,
I always say that.
The person I met, they are super nice, super kind, super professional, respectful. Honestly, 99% of trans people, I have nothing negative to say about.
No.
Because they've been through the shit and they know what it takes.
That's what happens.
They don't want to make any other drama, unnecessary drama. They just want to live in peace for the rest of their life.
Yeah, it's true. They say that about even people that are depressed. They are genuinely normally the nicest of people and the most caring and giving because they don't want anyone to experience what they have. So when you are a minority like us and you've experienced so much shit, I think that does kind of sum up as to the reason why we are genuinely normally the nicest of people.
Yeah.
But somehow we've been put down as the villains.
So emotional.
I just don't know why we get put down as the villain.
It makes me so emotional, like what we have to go through, and
It's shit.
Yeah.
Don't cry, you'll ruin the makeup. It's too early for that.
Yeah. I'm just sensitive, can't tell. I'm surprised you're not crying by now.
I'm normally sensitive, but to be honest, I have such a brick wall up since my company because I had to. Because I've been crying all the time.
It's a full moon in Cancer right now, and like in a few days, and I'm just like, oh, my emotions are all over the roof. Anyway, what I was gonna say is, I wish everyone gave people a chance, whether it's trans, whether it's any minority. Give people a chance. Forget all the nonsense that you've heard about them from social media and look at them as people and then judge them
for what they do, their actions.
What they do, how they are, how they treat you, you know? And then make a picture about them, create a picture in your mind about them after an hour, after 2 hours. But don't assume just because someone is trans or like a trans woman, oh my gosh, she will want to sexual assault me in the bathroom or something like that. You know,
and it's
like
just it's common sense. If you met someone that wasn't trans, you would not sit down next to someone that was just a cis white, whatever nationality, woman or guy, and say, oh, they're an awful person, or they must be a rapist or something. Because why would you say that?
Yeah.
I mean, if they've done something, then yes, go ahead. You know, you can't assume what someone is just because you've read something in the newspaper, but that's the power of what the media are doing, unfortunately. And it sucks. Yeah. It does suck. I mean, I keep my head down most of the time when I'm walking in the street, which is shit.
It's hard.
But it's safer that way because I feel like if you don't make eye contact with someone, people won't notice you. 100%. But why should I have to walk around in the street looking at the floor?
I know. I'm so sorry to go through this.
We're the ones that we need to be protected, not the other way around. But somehow, it all comes back on us. It's stupid.
Yeah. How was the first 2 years, 3 years of your transition when you said to your family? How did they react? How did they react later? Were they supportive? Were you working that time when you came out, and where were you working? So how was it for you? Because maybe someone right now who's watching or listening is freshly in transition or thinking about transitioning right now, and they are scared to tell their boss, they are scared to tell their families. What advice would you have for them?
So my first year was actually fucking amazing.
Yeah?
And that's solely down to the fact that nothing bad had happened in relation to transitioning. So I was just carefree. I didn't care about anyone looking at me, whether or not they were looking at me because my wig was crazy or whatever. So I had the best first year for sure. And funny enough, my family found out on Facebook.
How?
Because I just put up a post, I think, and I was like, I changed my name. Yeah, I changed my name from my original name to Carmen. And then I think my mum messaged me saying, oh, I've seen your name's changed. Is there something you need to tell me? And that's how they found out. Because I was just in such a whirlwind of my transition. Because I actually transitioned at a staff party. I was working at a hair salon in Chelsea at the time.
Right.
And it was the Christmas party.
Right.
And how I transitioned, I'll tell you the story. So how I transitioned was, it was December the 13th, 2014, which was a Saturday, and it was the Christmas parties for Harry's Hair Salon, which is where I was working. And one of the girls, I think one of the girls that was working there, she said, oh, Carmen, why don't you come in drag? Because she'd seen I was going out clubbing in drag, which was kind of how I was kind of releasing the whole feminine thing.
You've always seen as a feminine.
Yeah.
Even through the eyes of your co-workers.
Oh yeah, everyone always said I was very feminine. And they were like, oh, come and drag. And I was like, oh my God, yeah, let me do it. So I went to the staff party in drag with my friend Liam, and we were just at the they hired out the whole venue. We were there partying. And from that day, I never changed back into men's clothes. Because at that party was the first time people were calling me her, just because they were going along with the joke of me being in drag. Yeah. And instantly inside myself, I was like, my heart felt really warm. I'm just grabbing my breast there. Oh. And my heart felt really warm. And I was like, this feels... I was like, this feels so right that they're calling me her. Yeah. Like she. And I just never went back into men's clothes. And from that Monday, I went to work in female clothes and everyone addressed me as Carmen. And that's just how I transitioned. Because it just clicked in my body, my mind. And I felt like the person I was supposed to be.
That's so beautiful.
So yeah, I was working at the time I transitioned in a hair salon, which is obviously a very gay environment anyway. Yeah. And the salon I was working in was very wild to begin with. So they didn't really have any problems, but some of the men did. One guy...
Were those men straight? Okay.
Well, he said he was straight.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure he's not. But
if someone has a problem with you, they're not straight. You're in a closet.
Yeah, he was very aggressively flirting.
Okay.
To the point where I'm like, you're kind of just harassing me at this point. Yeah. But in my mind, I'm like, you're not harassing me because you don't agree with it. You're harassing me because you either want to sleep with me or because I don't know. So there was those issues, but as a whole, most people didn't really say much. But I think for me, it was easy to come out. I don't really like that term for coming out as trans. I don't like that term. But when I did transition, it was easy for me because I was drunk. Because I was at the staff party. I was drunk. So maybe drinking would be my advice there. I love that. I was drunk. So then they saw me in drag. Then on Monday I came in and I was still kind of in drag but transitioning, so it was kind of easy for me. And I've always kind of used alcohol anyway to break the ice with things. So that was kind of how I put it through to everyone I was working with. Probably not the most sensible of ways to do it. Well,
we all go different ways. So no judgment there. Also, I want to say I love the name Carmen.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Yeah, it's very unusual. Like, I don't know any Carmen in my life. Like, you're the only one.
Oh, good.
Yeah. Like, I think it's very unusual, very beautiful name. Is it Spanish?
It's Spanish originally, yes. Well, everyone thinks I'm Spanish now. Spanish Asian because of it. Because it's Carmen Liu. Oh. So Long and Liu are both Asian. Obviously, Carmen is Spanish. So whenever I get an Uber, they're like, oh, are you like Spanish Asian? Right. But obviously, you don't want to drop it to your Uber driver that you're trans before they kick you out the car or something. So I got it from, well, I chose it, I should say. There was a TV show called Devious Maids, which is so fun. And there's a very flirtatious Spanish or Mexican woman in there called Carmen. And to be honest, we have a very similar, we're very similar with everything, how we act, the people that we date. We're very similar in the show, and somehow it just seemed very fitting, Carmen, because I am quite feisty. I can be very shy though, without drink. Yeah. Back to that again. Yeah. And I ended up choosing Carmen. Yeah. Just quickly, I'm a very quick person to decide things. I don't really think about things too much. I don't I don't really second guess myself either. So that's why I'm saying when I kind of felt good when people called me her. I knew something was right in there, and that's why I transitioned and started looking into it because I knew it was right. And then the same with Carmen, it just felt so fitting because I was going through all these names online as you do, like as if you were like about to have a baby. And I was just reading all these names. I'm not going to say any in case someone's going to think of that name and I diss it or something. But I was like, it just doesn't fit me.
Yeah.
You know, the name just wasn't me. It just felt a bit too soft and delicate. And I chose Carmen because of the TV show. It was just in my mind. That's how I went with that one.
Yeah, I always like don't like the question either when people ask me like,
How did you choose yours?
Well, yeah, because people are always like, where is your name from? And when I don't know them, when they're strangers, I just say like, I'm from Czech Republic, you know? They're like, oh, nice. And then we just move on. But like, if you're from Czech, you know the Pavi is not, it doesn't exist.
Is it not
it's
right?
Not there. It's a part of my dead name, my previous name, which was Pavel. And this is the first time and last time I'm going to say that because I hate it.
You might have to say it on the next episode to someone else.
Exactly. But like, you know, like, and I hated it and I never liked it. So even when I moved to Sydney and I was in my gay twink phase for 2 years.
Oh, not the gay twink phase.
I was kind of like, I still didn't like my name. And then one time my co-worker Timia was, everyone was calling me Pav. And she started calling me Pavi. And I was like, Pavi is so cute. And it really, you know when you say like...
It is cute. Warm, it's cute and it feels like you, right?
I was like, I love Pavi. And then I was in like non-binary phase, like in between... boy or girl. I used to call myself genderless, you know. I was like, I'm genderless, you know. So I was good year non-binary, but I was still Pavi. And then even when I came out as a trans woman officially my second time, I kept the name. I had no desire to change my name. I feel like it's me, it's unique. It's feminine.
I like Pavi. I love it. I really do like it.
And, you know, no one is Pavi.
Again, I've never heard anyone call Pavi either.
Yeah, I love it. My next question is, how do you deal with transphobia, all the hate? How do you deal with, you know, seeing negative news on social media? How do you stay on top of things mentally? And how do you take care of yourself spiritually? Do you have any spiritual practice? Do you go to therapy? Do you meditate? Do you have any tricks? And if you do, please enlighten me.
Oh God!
To like filter the negativity, to stay strong.
Yes.
What's your secret? What's your way to do it?
I'm really probably not the best person to ask this one to because I drink.
Okay.
If I'm honest with you, but I mean.
If drinking can help you.
I mean, this just shows obviously what we kind of have to do to get through it. But I do drink to cope with it because it makes me just forget it. But what I've actually done is for the past 2 years, I've not been on Instagram.
Okay.
So I think I've done maybe 1 post or 2 posts.
Yeah.
And I just don't use Instagram or social media at the moment. And that's what I've done at the moment because it got to a point where it was actually a bit too difficult to deal with the online transphobia and continuously seeing stories that the media are putting out, which is completely a false representation of the community.
Yeah.
I couldn't cope with it anymore.
Yeah.
It was a stressful time. It was like during COVID. Terrible time. Anyway, so yes, I got off social media, which really did help me. If anyone is struggling with that, I would definitely suggest kind of even just taking like a month off. I know people do like a month and 3 months. Oh, did you? And people say that it really does help because it does because your phone starts suggesting all the stuff that you don't want to see. So like a break's just always good for you, and I think that's with anything.
Yeah.
So I do that, and I will be returning back to Instagram this month, which is why I was very glad that you asked me to come do the podcast.
What great timing.
I know, good timing. Yeah. And I say one thing that I do is I do things that cheer me up. So if it's, for example, that I go out and I buy a piece of clothing or something that will make me feel happy about myself and remind me of the reason why I transitioned, because it is who I am.
So it's usually the item that makes you feel more feminine?
No,
Usually?
not always.
No,
I mean, so it used to be Louboutins.
Okay.
So I'm a bit of a Louboutin whore.
Ooh.
But I've had to pull back on that financially because I can't afford that anymore. So I don't do that. But just anything that would cheer me up, really. Or
Yeah.
even if I just take myself out for dinner.
Yeah.
And just go out and just be happy being myself. And that kind of combats the transphobia, because it just reminds me it doesn't really matter what these people are saying.
Yeah.
They're not saying it out of honest, truthful reasons. They're not saying it because they genuinely believe that, you know, we're such terrible people. They're just a bit confused because of what the media is putting out. And I know that a lot of the transphobia, if you actually spoke to those people and kind of gave them some truthful information, they most likely would not have a problem with you or myself. So you've kind of got to remember that the people that are saying this disgusting stuff online or in person, it's not coming from them actually genuinely experiencing bad things from the community.
No.
They're getting it from the media and from the stupid stories that are going
100%,
out.
100%.
So it's
feel
not from that.
Transphobia is not phobia, it's not a fear, it's hate based on ignorance
Ignorance and
not enough education.
yeah, it's
People
all
have no idea. They just create an image, in their head about us.
without even
Without
have actually
meeting us.
met. I mean, a lot of people that I meet sometimes, you know, going back to what I was saying earlier, that when I was at like these house parties and stuff during COVID, obviously there's so many house parties, used to meet these people that immediately were just like hated me. And I would always say, have you met a trans person? And they're like, no. And I'm like, so how on earth have you got this assumption that we're so bad? Oh, because it's in the media. And I'm like, okay, so what story? They'll tell me the story and I'm like, that is completely misinformation.
It's honestly, as I said, like we need to break the stereotypes, break the taboos, because every single minority has something like a negative sticker, negative label on them. I don't want to name the minorities, but like I'm pretty sure like everyone can think of the first thing that pops up in your mind when you say trans people, like people you think like, oh my god, bathrooms and like grooming children, like all this stuff, I hate the phrase, by the way, but I really, that's why I'm doing the podcast as well. Like I just want to make sure that trans lives and trans dating is so mainstream that no one is even questioning it anymore, So that's why I'm doing this. But can you tell me a little bit more about you and dating? How's it been for you?
Oh gosh, terrible.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, yes. I think like many trans people, when you transition, this is where I might start to sound like a slut, but when you first transition, you get so much attention because the guys are like, oh, fresh meat, and they tell you how beautiful you are when you definitely don't look feminine. You look like a bloke in a wig at the beginning. We've all been 100%. There. So at the beginning, I was meeting all these guys and they kind of act like you're dating. So in my mind, I was like, oh yeah, I'm dating this guy. And then actually you kind of realize actually you're not, you're literally a side piece. So I think my first partner when I transitioned was, I'm trying to think, I think it must have been maybe like 2015. I think maybe about a year after I transitioned. Okay. I dated a guy, and to be honest, he was really lovely. He liked to go in public with me, and he wasn't ashamed to walk in public with me. And it was good, actually. It was okay, but I never got to meet any of his friends or his family. So although he did come out and meet my friends, definitely not my family because I didn't really hang out with them, but it was very one-sided. So from the beginning, I kind of noticed, oh, something's a bit weird. But at the same time, I was like, oh, but he is coming out with me in public. And he just kept saying that, oh, the reason is because they don't know I'm into trans people yet. I just need time. You don't understand. And I just thought, okay, you know what? Okay, I sort of get it. Because I had that similar experience when I thought I was just a gay man. A lot of the men I dated, because of the type of guys I date, they don't tend to tell their families that they're gay. So I had a similar experience before I transitioned, so I just thought, oh, it must be the same thing. However, fast forward 9 more years, it's very common that men just use you for sex, and they will lie out of their teeth about why they can't tell people or this, that, and the other. And generally speaking, I think most guys are just in it to have sex with you because we're a fetish. And I haven't dated for 3-4 years anyone.
Yeah.
It is not worth the pain. And I don't want to scare anyone that is obviously feeling like they're going to transition, that they are not the gender they were born in. But in my experience, which will not be the same as anyone else's experience, obviously I transitioned during a long time ago, and I've gone through a lot. And obviously with my company, it made me a big target for a lot of men that wanted to try and sleep with me. So obviously my experiences is different, but in my experience, it has been the worst thing. And it's the one thing I have hated about transitioning, is the fact that I'm very alone.
Yeah.
I'm very alone.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yes.
I feel like, we as trans women, we kind of transition, we work on ourselves, we spend so much money, so much time on our transition to kind of look how we want to look. I don't want to say look feminine, because looking feminine is not a goal of every trans woman. But, generally speaking, and speaking about like you and me, like transitioning, you kind of get to the point where you feel good, and now like, okay, what's next?
Yeah, until someone drags you down.
I feel like we just want to feel loved as any other girl, but because I feel like the men don't have the representation, they are scared, they are ashamed.
They're very
to
scared.
date us.
Very scared.
Because you see gay couples dating, you see lesbian couples dating, you see straight couples dating.
You definitely don't see
but
trans
you don't see
people.
many trans
Couples.
I know some trans couples. I know two.
See, trans and trans together, yes, but not trans and cis.
Two queer people together. But like dating a man who's been straight.
So born male
for 35 years, let's say. And like he's 35 and he's never been with a trans
Is that the
woman.
age you like?
Well, most of the time. Mine is like, I would say 30 to 35 now. But I would say they don't have representation in the media.
Of
And
couples, of people dating.
Exactly.
Right,
because,
yes.
like they know they like trans people because it's attraction. It doesn't just come to you when you are 40, It's been in you for the whole time. So you like trans woman, pre-op trans woman. And then, you get to the point when you are 30, 35 and you're like, it's not going anywhere. And I really want to experience that.
Well, so you don't want to waste your whole life not doing something that's like inside
it's
you.
It's not going to go away. And so I really wish there was representation for guys, especially guys, in public, sportsmen, footballers, actors, athletes, I don't know, politicians, dating trans women. Because it would help so much to make it mainstream.
But it's not going to happen.
You think?
No, because that's not the media's intention, because that's too adorable. That's too nice. Oh,
I'm
trans...
too naive and I just...
Oh, yeah, I think so, baby.
I'm too optimistic.
It's too... Yeah, I think it will happen eventually, I would hope. I mean, not with the way the world's going right now.
Because if you look at like 20 years ago, being gay...
I think it was easier 10 years ago to date a trans woman, if I'm honest with you. I personally feel like that. I think we're too much of a joke now, especially amongst men. So, in groups of men, even though like, most of them probably want to sleep with a trans woman anyway, amongst the men and their mates, there's too many jokes about it. So when there is a guy that wants to date a trans woman, in their mind, in the back of their mind, they're constantly thinking, oh, but my mates are not going to agree with it because, they're saying, oh, you're a gay boy if you do that, all of these things.
And what do you say to those guys?
Get over it. I only say that in a sense that, from my experience, any time that I've told someone, you just need to tell your friends and your family that you're going to be dating a trans person or you're into trans people, because that is part of you and it's only going to eat away at you. And once most of the people I know, to be honest, actually I think all of them, that have told their family or their friends that they're into trans women or they're dating a trans woman, they don't care.
No.
It's obviously you're so petrified inside that you don't want to say it.
Yeah.
and you think that they're going to disown you. They're not going to. And if your friends are going to disown you because of that, then fuck off.
They're not the right friends.
They're not the right friends. And at the end of the day, I guarantee your friends have probably slept with a trans woman.
Oh, yeah. The numbers on Pornhub don't lie.
No, they don't. My numbers don't lie. Yeah.
So, where are they? It's 30% of men. Where are they?
It's just, yeah. It's literally, they're not anywhere. And it's a shame, though, because the thing is, these women, not the women, sorry, the men that want to date trans women, these are men that are, in my opinion, they're only going to be happy dating a trans woman. Because they can date a cis woman, but they're not going to get what they truly desire. So they're only kind of hurting themselves by not doing it. And I genuinely feel sorry for those men. More so than I feel sorry for myself being single. Because I just feel like these men are just, you know, men can be fragile sometimes, and no one jump at me for that, but they can. And I feel that if they're hiding something like that, it's only going to transform into something else, which I feel like will be a very bad thing later on in age. I feel like they're going to end up doing something else terrible because they are so angry by not being
angry with themselves and upset, and they're holding the urge within themselves. I would say, what message would you have for a guy who knows he's been attracted to trans women for all his life, and he is like middle-aged now, and he is so scared? Do you have any encouraging words for him?
Is this someone that would never have met a trans person?
Yes.
Okay. So I think my main thing is to kind of say that it's never going to go away, the urge. And I would suggest that you get the urge filled, to be honest with you. I think my advice is to not go to a trans club.
Okay.
That's my first advice. Yeah. Because that immediately gives you the wrong impression of trans women and how we should be treated.
What's happening in trans clubs?
It's very sex orientated. It's very...
Transactional?
It's very...
Transactional?
Capital trans.
You want some action? Go to transaction.
I think it gives the men the wrong idea, especially someone that's never met a trans person. Okay. In my opinion, I think you should go on the dating websites.
Okay, such as?
I don't know.
Okay.
I'm not on dating websites because they're terrible. Because again, it does become very sex. But I think
I know that Grindr has a filter trans.
They do.
Yeah. So, but I haven't been on Grindr for the last 5 years.
I would say no. I would say no.
Then there is another trans app. I think it starts with T. I'm not sure what the name is either. I've heard of that.
I don't know.
I think they even sent me a message ages ago on Instagram, but I had never signed up. But Field is really good.
Oh, is that?
For anyone who has different gender identity or different kind of sexual orientation. So
I think that's a better way though, because you're going into that.
It's a very open-minded space.
Yes.
Everyone is like, you know, when I was on Field, it was very like non-judgmental, very open-minded, very chilled.
But was it dating,
dating website,
or was it more sex?
I would say both.
Okay.
Both. Yeah.
So I'd say do
there
that.
Are people looking for relationships. There are people in open relationships.
Yes.
People who are, you know, all the sexualities. It was quite cool. So yeah, you would say the apps?
I would say the apps because, and I say this to make you understand why, if you're going to find a cis woman, which is a woman born female and they're still female, so your normal relationship, you wouldn't go to a club which is kind of sex orientated to meet a person.
No.
Because you wouldn't do that. So why do that for a trans person and expect them to want to date and be kind of normal?
That's a good point.
That's why I say, thank you.
I love that.
That's why I say you need to go to the dating apps. Because if you want to date a trans woman, then go to it in the same place you would find a cis woman. If you go to a trans club, you're going to find a trans woman that is not going to be your cup of tea, if I'm honest with you.
Like a relationship material or something.
Not relationship material, no.
Sure,
you'll find me there.
But you know, it's hard for those men who want to meet us because we are so rare. There's like less than 1% of us, right? 1%, less than 1% people are trans. So half of it are trans men.
I think it's over 1% now, but
yeah.
Oh no, that's trans and non-binary together. So
yeah, like you half of it is trans men, half of it is trans women. So we are really like small percentage to meet. So like, you know, if you go to the pub or to the club, the chance you're gonna meet a trans girl is so small. Especially if you don't live in London.
I was about to say, if you're not in London, yes, for sure. I mean, I was just recently...
It's so hard, not just for us, but also for the men to find a partner.
I don't think it's too hard, though, because, I mean, the thing is, there are a lot of trans women that... Not necessarily the ones that are out on the scene that are going clubbing all the time, like myself.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of trans women that are on these websites too, and they are looking for dating and looking for love. But I think that the men... I don't feel like there's a lot of men on those apps that are searching for trans women on there. So I think they need to kind of alter their searching habits, because they kind of... I feel like a lot of the time the men blame us and say that no trans women want to date us. And I'm like, well, where do you meet them? They're like, the club. I'm like, well, baby, you're not going to meet a trans woman that wants to settle down in a trans club. We're there to party and get wild.
That's true. That's a good point. No,
do you know what I mean? I think it's just the way of thinking.
It's a really nice point, because, you know,
I'm quite proud of that point, actually.
That's why I love having you here and like having other trans people here as a guest, because, you know, my experience is my experience. But your experience is different to mine.
It's never the same.
Inspiring
never
as well.
The same.
Some stuff you're saying today, it's like, oh yeah, I never thought of that. You know, it's really good. Honestly.
To be honest, no one's really asked me these things.
Yeah.
Obviously, when I did a lot of media stuff with my company, it was around my company, because I didn't let the media ask me stuff about trans, because I knew they would try and twist it into something terrible. So it's quite fun to do this.
Yeah. Well, I've got more spicy questions for
you.
Ready. But it's going to be on Patreon, where we uncover spicy gossips, juicy truth from dating life, mine and Carmen's. So if you go into Patreon, see you there. If not, I'm going to see you next Thursday. But before, I'm going to say goodbye with my slogan, so much realness, it will make you blush. Every Thursday on Trans Crash. See you next Thursday. In the bedroom, do you have like dominant, submissive? Are you switch, or it depends on the guy? I feel like I'm giving 80% and he's giving 20%.
Yes. So one of my absolute turn-offs is when someone on their profile... Well, you know, the thing that you crave the most is the thing you don't get.